Mount Waverley.
Thank you, Speaker. And I rise to also speak on the Building Amendment Cladding Rectification Bill of 2019. And thank you to previous members for their contribution, especially the member for Geelong and, of course, the member for Mordialloc, who did us the service of a little recap of the member for Kew's history section, which was good to hear. But I noticed that the member for Kew did talk about some knowledge from 2008 and then a moment in 2011 where it seemed to be the Gillard government who were involved in something, and then of course there is the period from very, very late 14 to 2019. There seemed to be a bit of a gap there in any sort of accountability from about 2010 to 2014. I found that curious. I would like to thank the Minister for Planning for his work, the hard work that's been put in to rectify this very serious issue that is around the high-risk combustible cladding. And obviously the use of combustible cladding in Victorian buildings is a critical public safety issue. And whilst there may be some concerns, as the member for Kew said from his side, that public money should not be spent to assist homeowners in this case, I think when we consider the greater public safety issues for not just the homeowners but also for those people who live and work and transgress around those buildings, I think it's fitting that public money is used for this purpose. And our government is committed to rectifying this very serious situation. We are leading Australia and the nation on this issue, and the world, I should say, on this issue by inspecting more than 2,000 buildings to better understand the scale of the high-risk combustible cladding problem and to identify where there were key regulatory gaps. The use of combustible cladding is a complex issue facing major cities around the world. And as the problem stands, we have many homeowners in Victoria grappling with the cost and complexity of removing this cladding. Investigating the issues at hand and developing an appropriate response has been no doubt complicated but worthwhile. And the government has, amongst other things, developed a risk assessment tool for assessing buildings with combustible cladding, restricted the use of certain combustible cladding materials, undertaken a statewide cladding audit of both private and government buildings, which remains private for obvious reasons, although there are some who like to hand out addresses. The fire at the La Crosse Tower in 2014 sent shockwaves through our nation's construction industry and sparked major concern over the high-risk cladding used in Australian buildings. And in response, our government started our nation's first ever audit to identify buildings fitted with combustible cladding and to assess their risk rating. In 2017, the Victorian Cladding Task Force was established, jointly chaired by the former Premier and Architect Ted Baillieu and former Deputy Premier and Minister for Planning John Thwaites. And obviously, bipartisanship in this was very important. And if I can go back to our earlier MPI on mental health, and I think I'm correct, if I'm correct, the member for Ferntree Gully also applauded bipartisanship in the establishment of Beyond Blue. So there are important issues, whether it be mental health or whether in this case cladding, that we benefit by working together. The task force released an interim report in December 2017 and a final report in July 2019. And one of its key recommendations was for the government to take action to rectify buildings with high-risk cladding and to establish a dedicated cladding agency. So on July 16, the Premier and the Minister for Planning announced the establishment of this cladding rectification program. Its key aim being to support owners to fix buildings with high-risk cladding in Victoria. Now, this program, as others have said, has included a $600 million package to rectify the highest risk private residential buildings and the development of a new agency, Cladding Safety Victoria, to oversee delivery of this program. And the bill also introduces an increase to the levy as a source of partial funding for the cladding rectification rectification program. And I also think that is fair, given that, as previous members have said, the industry has been involved in putting us in this position, and the industry should be a part of assisting us out of it. This bill will also enable the states more powers to take action against the dodgy building practitioners or others in respect to the installation of high-risk cladding. And this bill gives the Victorian Building Authority the ability to provide information and advice on rectification work, make payments to persons or bodies eligible for financial assistance or rectification work, enables claims for payment to be made for building works associated with rectification work. This bill introduces an additional building levy, as I said, which will assist the fund in funding the carrying out of this work, and also allows for a review of the new additional levy amount to be conducted within 4 years of commencement of the relevant provisions to determine whether the levy needs to stay once rectification works have hopefully been completed. Importantly, I think this bill gives the government the power to take legal action in respect of combustible cladding against the builders on behalf of owners who access this assistance. The bill provides for rights of owners to be subjugated to the state, so the government can take legal action against wrongdoers where appropriate. After all, it's dodgy practices in the most part and cost-cutting measures that has led to this problem to begin with. The government will take action against wrongdoers on a case-by-case basis, and funds won from these legal actions will go towards aiding recovery of the costs for the rectification program. It's important we get on with the job of fixing these properties immediately, but that doesn't mean we have to let the builders responsible get away with what they have already done. Where builders have done the wrong thing, it's only fair that they contribute to the cost of fixing their mistakes. The bill will allow the state to take action in this area, so private actors responsible for the installation of cladding and allow us to recover the costs of that. Other courses of action will continue to be considered, including the use of disciplinary action under the Building Act as part of an overall approach to pursue wrongdoers, even where this may not result in cost recovery. Victorians rightly expect those who created the current problem to contribute to fixing it, as I've said before. So 15 buildings have been chosen at this stage to be the first to be rectified based on the risk rating and incorporate a variety of building types. These first 15 projects will enable Cladding Safety Victoria to test the processes as put in place and then scale up for the next tranche of buildings. Before the end of the year, Cladding Safety Victoria will notify owners' corporations of the next 150 buildings that will come into the program in 2020. Cladding Safety Victoria is scheduled to complete due diligence of all 15 buildings by the end of October, and this enables Cladding Safety Victoria to check on work done to date and estimate funding requirements for rectification. And this is the first time anywhere in the world that a government has sought to put a systematic response in place to this highly complex problem. And I note that the Minister for Planning recently returned from London, where they were very interested on what we are doing, even after they have had obviously the Grenfell fire that was mentioned before, which is obviously a serious tragedy for them. So it's good to know that we can help them in hopefully their rectification work themselves. The state has formed a strong response to a complex issue and is getting on with the job of making sure every Victorian is safe from combustible cladding. And this bill is about keeping Victorians safe. We've seen the worst case scenario with combustible cladding at Grenfell and in London, which saw 72 people tragically lose their lives. The Andrews government is leading the nation and the globe in a strong program to rectify this situation, but as I've outlined, this isn't purely about safety, this is also about what is fair. Homeowners who trusted their builders and were let down by dodgy practices and dangerous building products. I'm proud to see us having such a strong response to this issue, and I commend the bill to the House.